call your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that have made it this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. New superintendent in Liberty. Liberty High School principal Brian Knight has been selected as their local school district's new superintendent. Now, according to a report by Daniel Newman, this is according to a report by Daniel Newman of the Vindicator that was published April 25th. Knight was chosen out of 3 finalists. So story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2. Bus driver shortage in Mahoning and Trumbull County. Haley Roginski has a report out of the Vindicator published April 29th. Now, the piece explains how Mahoning and Trumbull County have had to improvise due to a bus driver shortage. Now, the bus drivers have had to lean on longer routes, cancellations, and even the suspension of some routes along with the hassle of transporting students in regards to the field trips. Now, and you got to put in athletic competitions as well, so they don't have enough drivers. Now, the article explains how other districts have had the same problem. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3: the East Palestine and Norfolk Southern relationship. Getting cozy. Now, the CEO of Norfolk Southern, Alan Shaw, has he's going on the record announcing his commitment to help East Palestine, if your country now. But he's gonna be undoing the events that took place February 3rd of 2023. That's what he says. Now, the company has now opened up a field office in the village. Now, he's going to try to undo the train derailment, toxins in the air. So this is his challenge. Now, the office will be a centralized resource hub for residents seeking support and answers to questions that still linger in the village, according to a report by Stephanie Elverd, published April 29th. Now, May 1st, the company made headlines again defending its safety records. So they've been on defense as well, folks. The story is still developing as the relationship gets a little bit cozy in East Palestine. Big headline. Story number 4. The drug war has evolved. Chris McBride has a piece out of the Vindicator about how Senator Sherrod Brown is touting a bill combating fentanyl trafficking. Now, the article goes on to say that the bill will focus on the urgent need to confront the grave consequences of fentanyl across the country and in Ohio. Now, the report goes on to mention that the bill will also hold Chinese chemical companies accountable for their role in fentanyl production and smuggling it into the United States. Now, that is almost word for word as stated in the report published April 30th. Now, the piece goes on to explain how other local representatives feel about the fentanyl problem, and some staggering numbers proving its effect and how it's torn down a lot of communities. Now, in 2023, the Mahoning County experienced at least 481 overdose incidents, 84 deaths, which is just a little away from mirroring 2022. Now, folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5, $1.2 million grant. According to a report published April 26th, the Education Service Center of Eastern Ohio has been awarded a $1.2 million state grant to advance teacher credentials. Now, the money. I can't mix money with Mahoning because Mahoning may not have no money. The money. Okay, Mahoning on my mind. Mahoning on my mind. The money will be used to create programs for teachers to complete additional qualifications to teach college courses under the College Credit Plus program at the high school. The small article published April 2026 explains how the money can also be used to pay for tuition, textbooks, and other material. Money, Mahoning County on my mind. Big headline. That's what number 5 made it. Story number 6, the economic development plans. A story out of Warren by Ron Seelick Jr. talks about the creation of Lake to River Economic Development. Now, the entity will focus on business growth and job creation in the region. The article goes on to explain how the focus will be on economic development in Trumbull, Mahoning, Columbiana, and Ashtabula counties. Now, according to the report, the focus will be project specific on finding a workforce with specific skills, making this workforce with specific skills. How about that? Finding it. Now, the report is business focused, ending by explaining explaining who will be on the board of this Lake to River project. So that's what it is, by just explaining who's going to be making decisions. Folks, this story is still developing. So story number 6 made it this week because we're talking local economic development. Big headline. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, if you want to know if the city is doing good or bad, it would be wise if you tune into Mediation. That's my commercial. That's my promo. Mediation could be the cure for your psychosis, for your psychosis, and for your psychedelics. Mediation is what you need. Story number 7. The clock is ticking for American Rescue Plan funds. You may not know what's going on. You may not even know Youngstown got some money. That's why you need to tune into Mediation. Youngstown Council seems to have some big plans for the old McDonald's on Market Street. The plan is to spend about $1.4 million in American Rescue Plan funds, including $800,000 for renovations, according to a report published by David Skolnick on April 26th on 570. They call it stupid, but Youngstown may think a little bit differently. The people, they may be a little bit challenged, but that's what 570 said. I didn't say it. I'm just looking at the report saying, whoa. Now, the report, which is mainly composed of talking points by Councilwoman Anita Davis and other ward heads. Now, according to a piece published by WKBN on July 14th, Youngstown has until December 31st of 2026 to spend $82.7 million in American Rescue Plan funds. So they got time. They don't have that much time to spend all this money. That's probably why they talk about spending it on something that they don't probably need. Folks, the story is still developing. That's story number 7. I was made to the top this week. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Folks, if you think the world is coming to an end, if you think Jesus is coming back, if you don't know what China is doing, if you look at your local paper and you want to know more, I encourage you to tune in to the Mediator that comes on every Sunday morning on 6:30 a.m. AM, that's the AM dial, or you can tune on the website and look at the show where I thaw out if the world is really coming to the end or if Jesus or the prophets are returning. Story number 8. More bad news for Youngstown schools. Oh boy. Jesus said, pay your taxes. I'm doing the best I can to pay mine. $12 million is the amount owed in property taxes, according to a headline published by Dan Pompley on April 27th. Dan Pompley, if I screwed up your name, I'm sorry, but I'm doing the best I can. I was raised, born and bred, and redeemed in Youngstown City Schools, but I think I got it right. Love you, Dan. The article goes on to explain how a meeting was held amplifying the entire situation to come up with a solution. I'm a proud representative of Youngstown City Schools, a product, so I'll continue on. According to the article, Youngstown is not the only district behind on taxes. That makes me feel better. Youngstown is not alone. But I love the city. This is the case, folks, for other poor districts as well. The article goes on to explain how the district is expected to end the next 5 years with a deficit. I wish I could help Youngstown, but like I've been telling the residents, if you spend money on me, I'll spend it on you. Maybe I can donate some of my little bitty paycheck to Youngstown. The report goes on. It's filled with important data for anyone interested in a solution for the problem. Folks, the story is still developing. Basically, what the story is saying is Youngstown City Schools are behind on their property taxes. I was born and bred in Youngstown. I was raised up in Youngstown. Youngstown gave me the courage to do this show in the Navy. I went to school. I went to college. Always thinking about the city of you. The city of you needs some love, needs some money, needs some skills, hard labor, love, and affection. I'll hug the students. I'll hug the teachers. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories, so don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator, me, Brian West, born and bred in Youngstown City Schools. I got my education. I graduated. Big headlines. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Tune in to Method Ace YouTube channel to check out the top interviews that made it throughout the years and months. Visit method8ink.com. Check out all the community interviews if you want to check it out. Method8ink.com. Buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Oh, yeah. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week, folks. People are angry. It's not like it used to be. There's no hospitality. People are demonic. I'm so demonic out here. I got people coming. Jesus is coming back. The prophets. I don't know what to say. I read the Bible. I don't know I didn't see nothing about Youngstown or the United States in the Bible. I didn't see nothing about Russia. All it talks about is Israel and Palestine. I don't know what's going on. People upset with me, smacking me. Dr. King is dead. Get off the drugs. Call me Jesse Jackson. People are high. Folks, we're in some uncertain times. People are riding around. Some people don't even know what the hell going on. All they know is Jesus. When something go wrong, they are afraid. People are afraid. There's nothing wrong with knowing Jesus, though. Because Jesus will work it out. He says that no man know the day or the hour. Yeah. Jesus is going to work it out, everybody. Don't be upset. Don't be scared. Be uplifted. Because at this time of despair, we must be encouraged by the word. Bless your name. That's all I can say this week, because I'm getting a little frustrated because a lot of people don't have common sense. They are afraid. People are angry. Jesus will work it out. Jesus will work it out. I tried and I tried. Just couldn't seem to solve it. I prayed and I prayed. Don't let it be too late. Jesus will work it out. Whew. If you let him. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Police have a brutal job, if you did not know. With so much pressure on police, KQED has a story out of California by Attila Pellet. Now, the report says that at least 16 people are dead in California over a decade span following physical encounters with police in what medical personnel have. They say that they've injected them with powerful sedatives to calm them or to get them under control. But somebody says some of these people have died. Now, this adds to more than 1,000 on record now in the United States when it comes to people who have died after officers did use their guns. So even with other forces, people are saying that people are still dying. But physical force, they're saying even without any weapons and by using physical force without any weapons, or the weapons like tasers and stuff like that. So sedatives. So this is all in the story. And the story made it in because policing stories continue to stay in the headlines, adding more pressure on the brutal job that they have in present day. That's because the world is not getting easier, and the policing job is getting harder. That's why story number 1 made it in this week. Story number 2. Some protests turned into a fight. The Los Angeles Times explains how violence broke out at UCLA as counter-protesters attacked a pro-Palestinian camp. According to the report by Safi Nazel, the counter-protesters tried to tear down the barricades surrounding the encampment, and once the protests got violent, officials later stepped in. Now, the report says that the response by the officials took some time, but they did step in. Now, the report goes on to explain how fireworks were set off and objects were thrown. There were also fights between those in support of Israel and those in support of Palestine. Now, the piece says that Palestinians used pepper spray to defend themselves. Now, it remains clear that the saga unfolding between Israel and Palestine is causing unrest in America. Now, on the other side of America, in New York, Reuters has a headline explaining how police arrested dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University. Now, these situations are so bad that the UN rights chief is troubled by the treatment of pro-Palestinian protesters at U.S. universities. Now, this story is still developing. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3. How is the current business climate? CNBC says that the Biden administration is facing an onslaught of lawsuits as business groups claim regulatory overreach. That's what they're claiming. Now, this is all while businesses and banks argue that the federal agencies are overstepping their authority. The Chamber of Commerce, was also mentioned in this report, the report says they filed 22 lawsuits against the Biden administration. Now, the article was written by Megan Casella. It goes on to explain several situations in which the Biden administration went too far in regards to regulations, folks, thus making this a top story because they're saying that the federal government is overstepping their boundaries. So story number 3 made it. Story number 4, the federal government in top headlines. The Hill has an opinion contributor piece written by Michael Brickman explaining how the federal government is abusing its power to target private sector education providers. The piece goes on to talk about incidents that involved the harassment of Elon Musk to the present day playbook of the Joe Biden administration. They're saying that he's using his tactics to hamper innovation and progress in higher education. If this is the case, nobody knows. The president won't admit it, but who knows? Now, the article goes on. It brings up some major talking points about the student loan saga also. Now, what got the story in is the countermeasures being discussed to protect citizens in this story. The story is still developing. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines, top 4 local headlines. Folks, those are our top 4 international headlines. I'll be right back with the top 4. So don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, the biblical story of King David, the Jews, and the Palestinians has evolved. Now it has spread across the world. The story has evolved into another chapter where the Palestinians are outnumbered. They are fighting in every part of the world on college campus. They are getting in fights on college campuses, barricading in buildings. And the Jesus groups of the Lion, the Giant, the Zionists are being abused, and the fight is a little bit confusing. I've chosen to stay in the middle to mediate, to tell the children of Abraham that we must live in peace. But the story has evolved even into death. People are losing their life in this fight. Some say the Israeli and the Jews have lost their mind. Some say the Palestinians have lost their mind. But folks, as the mediator, I say we must digest this. Look at what we are. We are the children chosen by the Most High to bring light into the world. But at this moment, we're bringing darkness, don't you see? So I ask my brethren, Christian, Jew, Gentile, Muslim, all of the Buddhist, Hinduism, to come together, join hands, and sing magical songs. Yes. We must be united in the body of the Lord. We must not be a darkness, but a symbol of light. We are welcomed in the kingdom of the Lord. Welcome each other. Yes. Let's pray for all Palestinian and Israel Jew brothers that we will be living in peace and stop fighting. Stop it! The fighting doesn't do anything. Children are dying. People are starving. Let's waste no time, folks. We must find a way to be blessed. Let's get to it. Story number 5. New evidence of human rights abuse in the Israel-Palestinian-Gaza conflict. Hamas. The Guardian says that the United States has found proof that Israeli units have committed human rights abuses before the Gaza war, according to the headline. The units found to be involved in the abuses are in the West Bank, according to the report, are mostly they're saying that mostly the abuses come from the Israel Defense Forces and at least one police unit, folks. This story is still developing as the saga in Israel and Palestine, the conflict continues. Palestine. Hamas. This stuff is going on, folks. It continues. This story is still developing. So story number 5 made it this week. Story number 6. Inflation may be here to stay. CNN has a headline that Social Security isn't keeping up with inflation. Another headline by CNN says that Americans' pay gains rose faster than expected so far this year. But I don't know if they're keeping up with inflation. Now, the article goes on to say that this is unwelcome data for Federal Reserve officials looking for inflation pressures to ease. Now, the other article goes on to explain how the 2 biggest annual increases in Social Security checks were not enough to keep up with inflation when it comes to food, housing, utilities, and other necessities. This could be bad for the Biden administration if he cannot please the senior citizens or the working class. The article goes on to explain how some polls have shown how many Americans are not happy with the Biden economy compared to Trump's. This story is still developing. That's story number 6. Also made it to the top 2 this week. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2. Local headlines, or international. I keep messing up local and international. I got to get it right, Brian. Don't be bad. Get it right, baby. Story number 7. The paycheck to paycheck story continues. You know, in this story, you got to wonder, I wonder if they had politics back in Jesus' day. Was Jesus a Democrat or Republican, or was he independent? Who knows? Was he living paycheck to paycheck because of Judas? Who knows? Story number 7. ABC News says that the U.S. economy is cooling off. The story goes on to explain how gross domestic product recorded 1.6% annual growth over the first 3 months of the year. Gross domestic product accounts for all of the goods and services produced in the economy. This is a slowdown from a 3.4% annual rate, more than what economists expected. Americans without at least $1,000 set aside for an emergency has also been a topic of conversations as more people continue to live paycheck to paycheck. Folks, this story is still developing. So story number 7, I'll made it to the top this week. Big. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. straight off the press, homemade, and cooked just for you, with some errors. Imperfect, but it still tastes as good as sweet as pie, baby. Story number 8. Let's get to this stuff. Let's get it done. Story number 8. The taxpayer is concerned. We get to straighten up for this one because talking taxes. The next president will have to please the taxpayer. That's a fact. According to a Forbes report, Americans are overwhelmingly rejecting Biden's plan to tax unsold assets. That's a $5 trillion tax hike that looms over American households and businesses in President Joe Biden's latest budget proposal. Now, according to the piece by Frank Holmes, this will include a 25% annual minimum tax on unrealized capital gains for individuals with incomes and assets exceeding $100 million. Ooh, that's big money. Now, the piece goes on to say that if this is signed into law, that this would increase the top marginal rate on long-term gains and dividends by 44.6%. Do your math. That's a lot. Now, this would be the highest such rate in U.S. history. The taxpayer is already subsidizing 2 wars currently, thus making this a top story, folks. The article is a must-read as it thaws out the math to inform people why it's a top story. You would think that if people were informed, especially countries, about how much the United States taxpayer has been investing in their countries, they would probably straighten up. But that's the problem. People assume, and you cannot fix the way people think. They think the United States is the enemy, so they may want to go blow some stuff up to prove a point. They think that people over there trying to start wars. Who knows what they think? They ready to fight. We like, hey, we spend all this money. Can we get some of this money back? They like, no, we want to take over your country. You're like, wait, who gonna pay? Who gonna pay the bills? Well, folks, on our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I hope you got something on today's program. I always get something out doing the research. That's the top 8 international and local. As usual, I thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit of the media. I'm just the media, the man in the middle, navigating your stories to keep people informed, hoping for a change in the way people think maybe one day. Well, folks, I am out of here. If you want to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program, or you can stop by the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. I'll be back next week for Mother's Day. Happy shout out to the mothers out there. I have a special show probably for you, Lord willing. I'll be back next week looking over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator this week with me. Happy birthday to my sister this week too, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.